Redditors that have gone on Tinder dates, what was your worst and weirdest experiences? I met a girl for a date who turned out to be much better looking than her photos, which is always a nice surprise. The date went well. Just dinner and a walk. And we said our goodbyes. The next day she invited me out to a friend's birthday party downtown as her +1. I wanted to go, but I had to work the next day and wanted to be able to drink a little since it was a bunch of people I didn't know. She said, "That's alright. You can park at my house and sleep over." Cha-ching! So, of course, I said yes. Fast forward to the middle of the party. I'm enjoying myself, chatting it up with her friends and having a good time, and next thing I know she absolutely loses it and storms out of the bar, leaving me there. Drunk. With her friends. I still have no idea why. One of them told me, "She wants you to go after her." And I said, "Duck that. It's our second date." Which not a single person blamed me for. I stayed at the party and switched to water while I continued talking with her friends. That was over a year ago. And I still regularly hang out with them. They have since stopped talking to her. TLDR no 6. But got to keep all her friends. Met at a coffee shop. She's there early. I order my drink. Sit down. She looks at me and this is her first sentence. "Let's cut to the chase. I need a father for my 4 sons." I got up and left. Just like their actual fathers. Eh? She was lying about her age. And wanted a baby. Immediately. Do go on. Well, profile said she was 19. And she was really ducking hot. So I was pretty interested. We text, talk on the phone. She does cutesy kinda immature stuff. But I blow it off, thinking she's just awkward at flirting. One night, we're texting and she starts sending me pictures. You know the kind. Sharpies were involved, so now I'm extremely interested in meeting up. She agrees, but on one condition. No condom. I'm curious about her medical history. I tried to stay clean despite being a filthy man who wore. So I ask when she last got tested. "Oh, I haven't been to the doctor in a couple years," she says. So I inquire how she has birth control. And of course she doesn't. Turns out, she saw that I was a single dad. And just assumed I would be okay with siring another child. She was wrong. She got extremely upset. And originally begged me to reconsider. That she needed a child in her life. When I remained unwilling, she dropped the bombshell. She was 17 and more than willing to go to the cops about the pictures I had on my phone. If I didn't give her a baby, delete every ducking thing and block her left, right, and immediately. I don't have a Tinder anymore. Edit the Sharpies went in her butt. I have a good deal of fetishes. And NAL play/degradation is one of them. She knew this because of previous conversations. I didn't ask her to do it. Nor did I ask for a single picture of it. I was just happy to receive hot pictures from what I assumed was a legal consenting adult. We went out for drinks. Then walked around the park and was an enjoyable date. I took her home and parked next to her apt. She said I shouldn't park there because I'll get towed. I said I only need 3 minutes to walk you to your door. She said seriously? You should park in visitors since you can stay all night and not get towed. I responded that I only need 3 minutes to walk you to your door. I am not a smart man. Thought this was going to end with your car being towed in the 3 minutes. And still thought she was just trying to be helpful until I read it a second time. We went to her place, ate mushrooms and had 6. She was a biter. And it was like having 6 with a giant spider. Needless to say I didn't have a great time. And she kicked me out. I sat in my car outside for 2 long hours tripping on mushrooms trying to come to terms with what felt like dying. Woke up the next morning with large bite marks. Never do mushrooms with strange Tinder girls. Funny. I went on an OkCupid date. We ate mushrooms. We had a great dinner. Great convo. Made out at his place. He pushed for more, but I was trying a new, take it slow, approach. 10 minutes later I'm sitting in my car in his apartment parking lot. Mildy tripping. Looking at the pretty lights and thinking about how time works. He never called me again. All in all, not the worst, but certainly not the best. Mushrooms plus online dating. Maybe not. Met with a girl who ended up being 16. I was 18 at the time. She told me how on her last date the guy drove her to a secluded area and told her she had to give him head, or he won't drive her home, and she asked me not to do that to her. I took her home immediately. Never met another girl online again. Sounds like she's got you beat for worst Tinder story, huh? I know I'm late to the party, but man, do I have a doozy. So last year, after getting out of a horrible sort of relationship, I decided to try something casual and use Tinder. Got lots of responses. Everything is going well. The dates were mostly lackluster, and I figured I was just being too picky. So I decided, the next 5 people to ask me on a date gets a yes. Bad move. So the first guy I'm able to go on a date with wants me to drive into the city, 45 minutes away, so we would have more stuff to do. Annoying but sorta understandable as I'm in a suburb without much exciting things to do. We meet. He looks like his pictures. We say hello and he tells me that we're gonna go play soccer in the park. Cool. I love sports. On the way we start talking and asking questions about each other. And I'm getting the vibe we aren't such a great match. I love to travel. He has zero desire. He only likes obscure sports. I love them all. But hey, I'm here. Stick with it. The entire time he talks about how he makes so much money, and how embarrassing it is for his friend to only make $60K a year at his dream job. I make half of that. I would have left considering the love connection. Or lack thereof. But I figured I'd be polite until after lunch. We head out and we arrive. $1 taco. Which, don't get me wrong, you don't have to splurge. But he looked me up and down and said, "You gotta earn your meals first," and gave me a creepy ducking smile. Nope. I feign a fake phone call and have to leave. But he insists on walking me to my car. We get there, and I try to shrug him off and GTFO, but then it happens. He leans in for a kiss. But not just any kiss. Open mouth. Tongue out. And as he leans in, his crotch brushes against my leg. Unfortunately for him, the soccer shorts didn't conceal his raging hard-on. So I did what any caught-off-guard girl would do. I accidentally laughed in his mouth. Oops. I was too awkward to say anything and just got in the car, driving away. Met one charmer after talking for a few weeks. After agreeing to meet at a nearby coffee shop. I show up right on time. 10 minutes later I get a text from him to come outside. Seems sketchy, but there's people about. So why not? I stand directly in front, and he appears out of nowhere in a hoodie. We walk a bit before he asks me to walk down a darkly lit street. I say I'm uncomfortable, and he immediately starts waking away. I assume he's joking and call him only to hear him screaming at me on the other end. He sends me a text a couple of days later insulting my hair and telling me to suck my big dig, you negress bitch. TL. DR guy wanted to dahmer me, then proceeded to call me racist slurs. Thank you, Internet. My first date with this guy would have been his cat's funeral. Luckily I had the common sense not to take it that far. I had matched with a guy and we began to be hitting it off. So I gave him my cell number. And of course he became increasingly strange. He was telling me about his cat and how he was worried about her because she was very ill. Okay, I understand having a sick pet is sad. Then he began to tell me about their relationship and how she was always there for him. Yup, I'm close to my animals too, that's fine. But then he began discussing how he doesn't know what to do if his cat dies. How he might heal himself unless I would be willing to take his cat's place. No. After that I stopped talking to him. He then started messaging me furiously. He told me how his cat died and he needs me to talk him through this. I expressed my condolences and tried to shake him off. He then proceeds to explain how we should meet at his cat's funeral. I don't respond. I didn't intend on becoming a skin suit anytime soon. His last text to me was an angry ramble describing in graphic detail how it was to eat his cat's ashes. He consumed his cat. Edit. I come back days later. And this blew up. I wish this didn't happen, but it did. Unfortunately. I would link a screenshot, but I deleted my Tinder after I met my current boyfriend. We went on 3 or 4 dates. I, 30, was starting to get feelings and like this girl, 25. On our 4th date, she asked if I could watch her cat while she was moving apartments. I am not a fan of cats, sorry Reddit, but I am a nice guy and kept the cat in my home office. Long story short, she doesn't answer her phone for over a week and only picks up her cat when I send a message saying it's going to the local shelter within 24 hours. Ducking Tinder. Matched with this guy. We talked for a little bit. And we didn't really seem to have anything in common, so I didn't plan on going out with him. When I finally did decline, he threw a fit and pestered me, promising a lovely night out and to just give him a chance. That should have been my first clue. No. At this point in my life, I was admittedly very picky about guys I'd go out with. And this guy as well as my roommates encouraged me to just go because maybe I'm missing out on nice people. Fine. We go to sushi. No attraction. Nothing in common. Horrible conversation. Every time I tried to lead with a subject, he ended it. What's your favorite restaurant? I don't know. Did you play any sports? No, the conversation was a dead end at every turn. Had a terrible time. Good sushi though. I insisted I pay half the bill. And we walked out. Then he grabbed me by the arm aggressively, insisting we go to Starbucks for coffee. I said no thank you. I just ate. I'm very full. I have a test tomorrow. Whatever. But he literally overpowered me and pulled me in and sat us down at a table. Now I was freaked out. We sat awkwardly. Silently. I asked, "Are you getting coffee?" Or? He smiled and said, "No, I don't want any," I said. "Okay, so why are we here?" And he slipped his hand between my thighs and credit carded me under the table. I was mortified and moved away. I said, "I am going to go home now." I thank God I drove separately. As I got to my car, he asked, "So when can we go out again?" I almost laughed at him. But I was polite because I'm a huge pussy. I said, "Well, you're very nice, Lai, but we don't have much in common and I didn't really feel the chemistry. But thanks for showing me a new sushi restore, you ducking hunt. You're just the same as all women. Although you were different. You dumb bimbo piece of shit. Duck you?" I got in my car and left. When I got home I had many texts from him and his roommate. From date guy, I got a lot of "duck you," and from the roommate I got a few angry/concerned ones like, "My roommate came home really upset and hissed. What the duck did you do to him? You're a bitch." I literally had no idea people could be like that. It really soured my Tinder experience, but I had fun laughing at the texts with my own roommate's edit. Credit carded means he swiped up my lady bits with a flat hand. Like a credit card in a slot. We went on 3 dates. The next time she asked to see me, I told her I was visiting family and wouldn't be available until the following weekend. In that moment, she freaked out and sent me a 7-page long text about how I destroyed what could have been a perfect relationship, and that she wanted to marry me still if I would just put her first. She then left me a voicemail of her singing "You Got It Bad" by Usher while crying and saying she loved me over and over. 2 days later she sent me pictures of her burning a bucket list she had made for us. Glad I got out of that one unscathed. She came over twice. We clearly hit it off. Hence the twice. Had a good time. Reached out for time number 3 and she replied she was trying to figure out how to get to the hospital. Apparently, her meds were lost in the mail and she waited, way too long to try to track down replacements. She got lightheaded. Nearly passed out and hit her head. Twice. So, because I'm not an easy hole, I took her to the emergency room and spent the next 6 hours with her while she got tested and checked out. Other than the hospital aspect of it, it was still kinda fun. We got to chat a lot. And I did feel a bit of a deeper connection. We even friended each other on Facebook. And she ended up being okay. Health-wise. Tried to set up a next meeting for real and she got super flaky. Wouldn't text me back for days. Wouldn't confirm plans. So, I took the hint and moved on. She was a chaotic 24-year-old stoner, whip smart. But lazy as hell. I'm a 38-year-old dude / non-stoner. It was definitely fun. But, yeah, it was never gonna last anyway. I wouldn't have minded a few more fun times though. Weirdly, we're still friends on Facebook. She likes my posts fairly frequently. 2. Right. So I was in Shanghai for work. And decided to see what was happening on Tinder. I had to use a VPN to get around the Great Firewall. Anyway, matched with a girl and chatted briefly. She asked if I wanted to meet at her hotel for a drink. Alarm bells should have been ringing willy. So I shower up, pop a breath mint, and smash out a Lucky Panda cigarette whilst flagging down a cab. I get to her hotel and to my astonishment, she is the woman in the profile. Waiting for me at the hotel bar. Have a few cocktails and things are going well. She's friendly. Seems really into me. Then she asks if I want to go up to her room for some more drinks. Dear diary, jackpot. So we make our way upstairs and she doesn't waste any time and jumps straight in. When all was said and done I thought, right, time to do the Shanghai shuffle. So I'm putting my clothes on and about to leave and she weighs. What about my money, baby? My heart sinks quicker than a mob snitch swimming in concrete boots. I ask her what she means. Not for free 3,000 renminbi. She replies, which is just shy of $500. Duck me. I just rooted a hooker. So a heated argument begins and I'm planning my escape lest there be a pimp waiting outside. She starts screaming at me and hotel security arrive on the scene and hustle me down to the lobby. She follows in tow demanding her money. Screaming, yelling, making a scene. Everyone's looking. I've really hit rock bottom here. Then I see someone get out of a cab outside the hotel entrance. I gap it and leap into the cab, telling the driver to drive, in the worst Chinese possible. I probably said something offensive, but the power of the almighty yuan saves the day and he speeds off, taking me back to my hotel where I can hit a bottle of scotch and reflect on what the actual duck just happened. TLDR, I shoplifted a hooker in Shanghai. Edit, well, this blew up. Cheers to the man or woman who gilded me for my sordid affairs after dusk in Shanghai. Oh God. I have had several awkward Tinder dates. The worst was this guy who was 23 and had pretty much grown up on the computer. Usually don't mind guys having a gaming hobby. Any hobby is great as it shows you have a passion for something. But it should be a hobby, it shouldn't rule your life. Anyway, I offered to meet him at the uni we both attended to grab a coffee. But he insisted on going to the local shopping complex despite the fact that he didn't drive. No idea how he got there. He ended up being around 30 minutes late. Okay, I can deal with that. When we finally meet, he's so nervous he's shaking like a chihuahua and barely able to speak. I get it. First dates can be nerve-wracking. We sit down to sushi and there is absolute dead silence. I start asking him questions to start the conversation, but all I get is 2-word replies. Right. This is getting a bit more frustrating. I even asked him questions about what games he likes. I do know a bit about games, but all I get is condescending answers. I'm starting to feel more like an interrogator than a date. Suddenly he perks up and goes, I have to go. There's a LAN party on. Okay, mate. You're not feeling comfortable on this date, that's fine. Even though you suggested it, and you were so confident online. So we part ways. The kicker comes about 4:30 a.m. the next morning. I'm working an overnight shift at MacGas and this group of guys come in. Chihuahua Boy is in the group. Being a whole lot more confident, I get it. It's easier being social with friends. They walk in talking about bitches, and how ducking fake gamer bitches ruined their LAN party. I wish I was making this up, he goes to order. And doesn't realize it's me. They leave a huge mess behind. I'm talking purposely smearing ice cream on the table and chairs plus more, because it's the employee's job to clean up. The next afternoon I get a message from him asking if I'd like to meet up with him again. I politely said no. He called me a fat bitch. Never saw him again. Started talking to a girl. She started talking sexual rather quick. I got her number, and we started talking some more. She tells me that she needs some ASAP and to drive out to her place. Now she lives like an hour away and girls don't normally talk to me like this. So I think to myself, is this a setup? So before I make any hasty choices I buy myself some time by telling her I had to work and that I'd be available the following night. Fast forward to the next day and I get a text from some dude asking if I knew the girl. I said yes. So then he says, well, I'm her B/F. I hope you enjoyed ducking her, but that'll be your last time. I informed him that I never met her, and had I known she had a man I wouldn't have spoken to her. That tells me, oh well, that's cool. When we fight she always gets drunk and tries to duck someone off of Tinder. I told him that she sounds like a keeper. We talked for a while about our families and I mentioned both my brothers were mentally handicapped and I've worked with people like them to help better their lives. She said I was a really sweet guy for doing that and devoting my time. Then she told me people like my brothers should be euthanized as kids so they can't be a burden on their families or society. Long story short, I'm banned from Panera. I was having a wonderful Tinder experience shortly after I downloaded the app. She was funny. She was cute. She laughed at my jokes. I am a relatively shy guy. So it took me a few days before I finally asked for her number. I couldn't have been more excited when she responded by giving me her number and telling me to ask her to dinner. We go out to dinner. And it is magical. We went out to sushi and laughed through the entire meal. We ended up sitting at the table for 2 hours. We talked about everything and anything. We head back to her apartment to watch a movie. Thank God I am a shy guy. We end up only making out for a bit. You'll understand later. At about 1 a.m. we head back out to the bars. The date was going so well that she invited me to go out and introduce our friends. I invited my friends. She invited hers. We start doing shots, telling each other stories about our past and our families. I live in a large city, but my father is from a tiny little town. She lives in a large city, but her mother is from a tiny little town, the same town. Long story short, over shots I discovered that I kissed my cousin. I have become a kissing cousin. Not Tinder but OkCupid. It started with this message when I was very drunk. We meet at a local pub for a few drinks. And we get chicken fingers. The conversation is terrible. But I notice she's taking the chicken fingers and ripping them up in her hands and putting the breading in her huge purse. So naturally I call her out on it. She smiled and said, "Oh, I'm just feeding Sammy," and pulled out a fat chinchilla from her purse. She plopped the thing in the middle of the table, and it just kinda chilled out. I played with the chinchilla a bit, and she kinda got mad at me for playing with it, and back in the purse it went. I was ready to call it and leave. But she mentioned she could go for some ice cream. And I was cool with it. So we go to Ben and Jerry's. We get to talking about tattoos and piercing. And she tells me she has nipple piercings. And I'm like, "Oh?" And then she pulls down her shirt in the middle of Ben and Jerry's at 8 p.m. and shows me her nipples. I just kind of poker-faced. So then I decide to walk her to her car. She kiss attacks me. And well, she was kinda cute, so I made out with her. Sort of. Her lips were tense the whole time and she licked my teeth. I friend her on Facebook for some reason after that. She had a Facebook page for her chinchilla that had more Facebook friends than I did. A few months later the chinchilla died and its Facebook was a memorial page where a bunch of people, like 35, commented how much they missed it. I liked one of her statuses and she called me crying. I unfriended her but not the chinchilla. R.I.P. Sammy. So my roommate from last year and I were really into Tinder and the random 18 years old hookups around our campus. One night he chats up this girl and she decides to come over to our apartment. She comes over and they go into his room. I am chilling in our living room eating popcorn and watching NBA. He comes out to open a wine bottle and grab some glasses. Then comes out again 10 minutes later and says to me, "Dude, she's such a freak, man." So they are doing their thing and what? Out of the blue I start hearing them argue. My roommate then comes out of his room freaking out. "She's poking holes in my condoms and ripped my shirt up. I told him to get back in there and kick her out of here." She then proceeded to lock his down while he was in the living with me. She wouldn't open the door for him and kept telling him it was his fault and he's gonna pay for it. 15 to 20 minutes go by and my roommate is trying to get back into his room. I suggest to him that he just say "duck it" and call the cops. He actually does it. AK-9 unit and 2 other patrol cars come. Cop tells the chick to open the door, and she doesn't believe he's a cop, and then after a few back and forth comments she opens it. The cop starts talking to her, and she becomes more aggressive with him. Cop tackles her to the ground. The chick gives him a fake ID and all hell is released upon us. She was dragged out of our apartment complex screaming, and whatnot. A few months later my roommate matched back up with her on Tinder, and they ducked again. At least your story ends relatively quickly. My very ex-wife got the lung con. And by long I mean 3 years. We played World of Warcraft. Her and I. Nearly every day. We were pretty serious and pretty good. We found ourselves a great group of people. Guild. To play with. That's where Eric comes in. At first they just chatted and got to know each other mostly while I was at work. Things soon started getting more serious. I knew pretty quickly and we talked about it. I wasn't so good with boundaries back then, so the short version is I let it continue. Anywho, he had a whole backstory. A job as a sales rep at a liquor distribution warehouse. Nice, but modest car. He talked about shit at work all the time and a ton of general life stuff. It all seemed legit. The guild we were in was pretty close and we'd easily consider each other friends, so we all planned out a no-sheet in real-life meetup for a few days. This is where the suspicion starts. Eric is all, "Duck, yeah, I'm going," but breaks his leg climbing a tree while drunk with friends a few weeks before the meetup. He doesn't go. My ex-wife, still desperate to meet him in person, makes plans with him to come up and visit us a few months later. Then his dad dies. A few more months. New plans. And his mom dies. All the while things get less and less appropriate. They're sexting all the time. Sharing erotica stories. Trading nude pics. It was a ducking train wreck for me. But this one's not about my part. By this time a year has rolled around, the guild is doing another meetup. He gets into a car accident. Months later. New plans. His brother attempts suicide. Eventually my ex gives up. But every now and then the idea of meeting him in person would crop up with something happening to heal it. We lived in New Jersey and he in New York. It really should not have been all that hard. Fast forward to our sudden yet inevitable divorce. She ducks around with a mutual friend. She goes way sideways and we split. She tries to date the ducker but he doesn't work out. But all the while she still carried on with Eric. The new guy didn't care for that too much. He apparently knew a guy that was adept at finding info on people. He must have been, because I never could find shit on Eric. Anyways, come to find out through some IP magic and some other shenanigans, Eric was only 18 by that point. Just out of high school. Family all alive and well. This means he was only 15 when they first met online and underaged as duck for 90% of theater talks. It was all lies. Everything. He quite literally led an imaginary double life that he would talk about constantly. At least by this point I was long gone, and enjoyed hearing about the glorious turn of events from mutual friends. Edit spelling. Posted this before in a different thread. It remains my strangest encounter from a date that originated from online interaction. After talking with a girl for a week or so, we decided to go out for dinner. Dinner itself lasted about an hour. There were a couple of awkward lapses in conversation, but other than that I thought we had a good time and a rather normal first time out. I offered to pay and walked her to her car, and that was the end of the night. We planned to discuss over text the second dinner for next week. About 10 minutes into my drive home I received a text message from her. "If you're not interested in me, that's fine." I was taken aback considering the night had gone well. I responded back, "I'm not sure where this is coming from. I thought we had a good time." I will never forget the next thing she said to me. "I'm into you, but you haven't even used an emoji once when we've texted." Maybe I'm wrong, but early 20s flagging non-emoji use as a deal breaker seems odd to me. I don't really use a lot of emoji. Didn't realize that was important. It was at this point my feelings began wavering on the entire situation. Her next response made me realize I needed to nope the duck out of this. "If you don't use an emoji, how am I supposed to know you have emotions? Do you have emotions, or are you some psychopathic kriller?" I responded back telling her I felt we should cancel our discussion about dinner in the future as this probably wasn't going to work out. She proceeded to text me rapid fire for 2 hours and call my phone non-stop, leaving voicemails. I didn't read the texts or listen to the voicemails, except for the final one in which she told me the date was a huge waste of time and that I am going to die alone. To her credit, I've not dated since, so she might be right. Here it goes. I was traveling through Europe and I matched with this girl when I was in Sweden. She was swiping from Switzerland, because she would be there in about a week. I was leaving to Poland in a couple days, so we didn't meet each other. We exchanged Facebooks and Snapchats and messaged each other like every day. I was in Ukraine trying to get a bus to Budapest, but apparently I missed it, so I had to stay another day. I was eating soup in the city center and told her about me missing my bus, and jokingly told her she should buy me a ticket to Switzerland. She actually agreed, and I was shocked. I told her I would only stay for a few days then fly back. She was fine with it and told me to go to the airport and check in with my name. Made it to Switzerland. Had a wild 3 days with her. And she flew me out to Budapest. Such a sweet girl. Random experience all around. I still get made fun of for this by my friends, but here it is. I was 21, I was talking to this girl named Valerie. Really ducking hot, I mean she was my ideal woman, appearance-wise. We got along well. We had the same sense of humor. Seemed to like a lot of similar things. And again, she was hot. After a few days of talking, we decided to meet at a hookah bar. We were there until they closed, just smoking and talking. We actually ended up drawing strangers to us and had a large group at the end. I can honestly say it was and still is the most fun I've ever had on a date. When the bar closed, we made out outside for a few minutes. We parted ways and talked on the phone all night until I passed out. Perfect night. Well, that next day a friend of mine and I decide to go to that hookah bar because we smoke a lot and the place is fun. As we walked in, Valerie approaches me. We hug. I kiss her. We chat and ask what we are both doing there, then the manager asks her to leave. We kiss. She leaves and says she'll call me. Thought it was really weird, but whatever. Later during the night, the manager comes by our table to bring us coals and I ask him why he kicked her out. He said, "Oh, Valerie? Man, she is 13 years old. She goes to go blankety blank middle school. She can't be here. She is 13. Echoed in my head for 10 minutes. While time my friend is laughing at me. I called her to confirm this, and she admitted it but said she didn't think it mattered. Ran into her a couple months ago. She works at Sonic. asked me for my number while I was in my work uniform while I was there for lunch. My same response from last time this was asked. Don't mind the errors. I matched a girl on there and we talked and flirted and eventually exchanged numbers. We texted for a few days, became Facebook friends, Skyped once, then made plans to hang out. She had a puppy that I told her to bring because puppies, and she drove the hour to see me. She looked nothing like she did in any of her pictures or even when we Skyped. She was a different person, and he puppy was just a piece of shit untrained mutt. I tried to make the best of it. So we left to go buy some cookie dough, and when we got back my roommate was outside, panting and super sweaty. I asked what he was doing and he said her dog ran out the door as soon as it was opened and he had been chasing it. I start freaking out at this point cause though this girl's dog had ran away and I didn't know what to do, but fortunately my roommate had caught her. He tells me I need to go inside and look in my room though and to not touch her dog cause it was covered in sheet. I walk inside and my entire apartment smelled like poop. The dog had jumped all over my couch and had gotten sheet all over it. I go into my bedroom and the dog had sheet and rolled in the sheet all over my bed. At this point I figured I was going to murder this dog and eat this catfisher girl. But I realized it was easier to eat the dog and kill her. So I grabbed my knife from the closet and... Just kidding. But after seeing how destroyed my apartment was from this tiny animal, the girl started crying and got real upset and felt awful, and I felt bad that she wasn't having a good time. I mean, I did invite her to come over and do something with me. So we cleaned everything up and made the cookies and sat down and watched a movie. After things had calmed down long enough, she motions toward my bedroom and I follow. Her dog follows us, jumps back onto my bed and pees in the middle of it. I had literally no reaction at this point, and just cleaned it the best I could. What happened next was the greatest BJ I had ever received. I'm not sure if she was trying to make up for everything. But damn, this girl gave me 199%. I didn't know what was going on. We passed out and she left around 9 the next morning. I haven't spoken to her since. She had a real big butt too. I went on a few dates with this girl and things were going great. We were doing a lot of cool activities like indoor rock climbing, running together, going out for drinks. We actually started dating for 2 weeks when I took a day off of work to go off to hang out. She wanted to go for a bike ride through the wood trails around her area. I said I would bring my bike with me. Little did I know the bike needed some maintenance that I didn't have time to get done. I showed up and said sorry that I didn't have the bike and there was loads of other things we could do that day. She just shut down. She started bawling her eyes out, shouting, "It's not fair! I want to go on a bike ride." She had a complete mental breakdown, and we ended things that day. Dodged a bullet. But I'm glad I saw it early enough. I've had some pretty bad ones, but this one takes the cake. If you think this sounds unbelievable, I agree. I could not believe it as it was happening. He walked in out of the rain, and with a dramatic flourish swept his fingers through his wet hair and inquired whether it looked good. Next he asked me whether I ever straightened my hair. When I replied that it takes over an hour to get my curls satisfactorily straight, he exclaimed that an hour every day was nothing compared to the amount of time men have to spend at the gym to look good for women. He followed this up with a charming little story about how his mother and all women are unreasonable that culminated with, "But like my dad always says, you can't apply logic to women." Cue moment of awkward silence. "That's kind of sexist," I said, looking at him with increasing incredulity. "Yeah, but it's funny," he exclaimed, laughing loudly at his own joke. He continued this winning streak with, "Are you into fitness?" Before I had a chance to answer, he looked me up and down and said, "Clearly not. I can help you get started if you want." At this point I was more amused by the nearly unbelievable things coming out of his mouth than offended. I think he could tell he was losing his audience because he stuck his hand in his pocket, whipped out a miniature Avengers-themed frisbee, one of those trinkets you get from a cereal packet, and slid it across the table. "Here. A gift for you." I didn't want it. For some reason I hadn't left yet. Mostly because I wanted to hear what other amazing things he had to say. I knew it was going to make a good story later. He did not disappoint. He demanded to know how many guys I was talking to on Tinder, and said that he had deactivated his account, so now I was the only girl he was talking to. When I said I was still talking to other guys because I'd only matched with him the day before, he insisted on seeing my phone. At this point I thought, duck it, and showed him my matches. He started exclaiming that all my other matches were ugly compared to him, and that he was beginning to doubt my taste in men. He told me that he used to be a model, and that the New York Times had called him one of the hottest new models in the country. I expressed amazement that I had never heard of him before. I explained that I grew up in a very conservative, bordering on cultish, religion and was homeschooled by fundamentalist parents. He raised his hand to his face dramatically. "Oh no! That means if we get married I'm gonna have to meet your weird parents." I took that as my cue and suddenly remembered my friends were having a study group I really wanted to attend. On our way out he left me with this final gem. "If we keep seeing each other you're not allowed to dye your hair again. I like blondes. Text me." He called as he walked off. I still have the frisbee. It had been a while since I last had gotten some, so I tried Tinder to get some luck. Almost immediately I got a match. She lived 2 hours away, but was DTF, and that's a drive my big dig was willing to take. We talk for a bit, and we exchange a few photos and decide to meet. I pick her up and immediately start noticing that something is off. She asks me to go to a coffee shop so we can talk before I intend to pound her into oblivion. She gets a triple shot espresso and downs it in seconds. She recommended we go to an abandoned cornfield and bone in my car. So she starts kissing me, and she's going at it like a Labrador. At one point she even licks the outside of my lips and my cheek, which made me slightly uncomfortable. I thought, duck it, I may get my big dig wet even if this girl is a freak. So we're both naked. I'm pounding away for what feels like forever. And after 20 minutes she's already finished, and I'm trying very, very hard to get there. But for some reason I can't. She tries going down on me, and hurricanes on my big dig, teeth and all, grinding up my shaft. I ask her to hop back on so we can keep going. Right in the middle of reverse cowgirl, I hear a knock. I look to my left, and there's this scraggly old man with a double barrel tapping on my window. She doesn't hop off, but covers her chest as this man signals me to roll down my window. Considering he looks like a hissed-off hillbilly, and he has a shotgun, I oblige. The next thing that I hear rock me to my soul, and I will never forget what he says. He cackles out with a serious face and a slow southern drawl. "This ain't no lover's lane." I start stammering an apology and push this crazy chick who is unfazed off of my big dig. Hop into the driver's seat and floor it out of that cornfield. She just quits talking to me at that point, puts her clothes on and just stares out the window while I'm going 60 down a gravel road in nothing but a white t-shirt and a soggy condom on my limp big dig. We stop by some abandoned shack and I clean up while she continues to stare out the window. When I get back in, she tells me to drop her off at the DQ down the road. I'm happy to oblige and very politely kick her the duck out of my car. She throws a $20 at me on her way out the door, goes to the garbage can and just vomits a torrent or brown-yellow puke all over the sidewalk and the side of the can. I nope the duck out of there, confused, blue-balled, and scared. I've never heard from her since then, and have never used Tinder after that. TLDR, this ain't no lover's lane. This actually happened very recently. Was talking to a girl from Tinder who appeared to be cute. We got along over chat, and agreed to meet up. Where I ducked up was meeting her at a coffee shop within walking distance from my apartment. We meet, and I realize she's been very deceitful about her body type in chat and her pictures. And on top of that, things don't really go that great on the date, but since I walked there, she offered to drive me home. And for some reason I said yes. I say goodnight, and when she texts me later, I very politely let her know that it wasn't a great fit. etc., etc. But then the next night she shows up unannounced at my home for a date, which had never been discussed. It was extremely awkward and uncomfortable. After that, she kept trying to request a relationship on Facebook. Was messaging a bunch of my friends, introducing herself as my girlfriend. Just really weird shit. And worst of all, she also messaged a girl I actually am extremely interested in, telling her that I was hers and not to talk to me. That really hissed me off, because it had the potential to duck things up with the girl I do like. After all that, I blocked her on everything. Her friend sent me a message about how I broke her heart, and she seems to have disappeared back into the mists of Tinder. I disabled my account because of it.